Well, welcome to day 21 of our walk through the energy bus. Today's habit day because they say it takes 21 days to make a habit, and today is our 21st chapter together. And though it is a short chapter, it is a powerful one because George needed some reassurance that everything was going to be okay. And we see that in the book, he gets this reassurance in the form of a dream. And in his dream, George is on a bus, and he's got his employees on there, his wife on there, his kids on there, and they're all racing down a mountain, heading towards a black hole. But just before the bus crashes, an invisible hand picks them up and moves them to safety. And George hears a whisper that says, "Trust that great things are happening." For the first time in a long time, George feels peace. What a moment of reassurance that's a picture of. Now, the first time I read this chapter, I had never experienced anything like that. But since then, I've had my own moments of reassurance. Let me take you back to one specifically. I had left the financial industry and I had returned back to the restaurant business, this time as an owner-operator of a seafood franchise. And everything was going great. We were on the move and we were gaining momentum, and then the pandemic hit. Suddenly, my business partners were selling their shares, everything was shutting down, and the future seemed completely uncertain. And to make matters worse, my restaurant was 2 hours away from my house. It was in my wife's college town. Now, before the pandemic, that wasn't a huge issue. I would drive up twice a week. I meet with my leaders. I would spend a little time in the dining room talking with guests. And again, I had a rhythm. But once COVID hit, I lost almost the entire staff. And now I was driving 4 hours round trip every day, working from open to close. And I didn't know whether to stay or to sell. And it felt like I was drowning in uncertainty. I'd say on a scale from 1 to 10, my anxiety was probably a 33. But then one night, everything came to a head. And that night, I had a dream. In this dream, I wasn't on a bus. I didn't have everybody moving towards a black hole, but I was in a massive cathedral. And I was sitting up in the balcony section. And below, on the main floor, there were people and they were arguing so loudly that I couldn't hear the reading that was going on from the front of the room. And I started in the dream to get anxious and frustrated. But suddenly, behind me, somebody plugged my ears. I know it sounds a little weird, but they plugged my ears so everything sounded muffled. And then all of a sudden, I heard the most beautiful singing I'd ever heard in my life. It rang out through the entire cathedral and everything went silent except for the singing. Now, at that time, I had never been inside of a historic cathedral, and I definitely had never heard any singing inside of one. But later on, a few years later, I'd end up traveling to Europe, and I experienced both touring cathedrals and hearing the singing inside of them. And here's the cool thing. It sounded spot on in my dream all those years before. But an important part to the story is the moment that the singing started, an overwhelming peace came over me. And for the first time in the dream, I could hear the reading of the word clearly. And then I woke up. But the peace that was in the dream with me came out of the dream with me. And I wasn't anxious anymore. After that, negotiations started happening. I sold my portion of the restaurant, and I moved into the work that I'm doing now, which is exactly what I was meant to be doing. Here's the lesson. Sometimes we have to go through something in order to get to something. George had to go through a flat tire to get on bus number 11, to change his product launch. I had to go through my restaurant pandemic experience in order to have the things happen to get to working with leaders and impacting their lives. And that's the thing is our challenges change us. Now, you may be in an uncertain season right now, and you may be needing a moment of reassurance. If so, I want to encourage you, nothing is wasted. Keep moving forward. There is a reason inside this season. Because as the old saying goes, it's always darkest before the dawn. If it's getting really, really hard, good. Your moment of reassurance is on the way. So here's my reflection question for you. Have you ever had a moment of reassurance in a tough season? Maybe yours too was a dream or an encouragement from a friend or something that showed up right in the nick of time when you needed it. If you have, I'm going to encourage you to share it with someone because you never know who needs to hear your story and how it could help them through their own season of doubt or their own season of struggle. Well, I believe things are turning around for George. It's all coming together one step at a time, and we're going to see more of that tomorrow. I'll see you then.